Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm your host Stan Illman. Let's see what's on tap for this week's edition of Out of the Gate. Daily Racing Form handicappers Mike Beer, Craig Milkowski and I will take a look at 4 major Grade 1 stakes races from across the country. 2 at Keeneland, the $1 million Shadwell Turf Mile, the Breeders' Futurity for 2-year-olds. 2 at Belmont, the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic, and the Champagne Stakes for 2-year-olds. Nicole Russo's Pedigree Pic segment focuses on some of those quality 2-year-olds running on Saturday. David Aragona from Timeform US, he spotlights a major race as well. Best bets, horses to watch, lots more. Let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our Horse Watch segment. Let's see who our colleague Craig Milkowski will have for you to put in the stable mail this week.
My horse to watch this week is going to be Arafana. She's a 3-year-old filly. She's now won all 3 of her career starts, and she won just this past Saturday at Laurel in the second race in an allowance race. She received a 108 Timeform US speed figure for it. And what's so promising about this filly is not just what she's done on the track, but her breeding, which is very good. She's by Curlin. She's out of an AP Indy mare, and she's a half the Grade 1 winner and multiple graded stakes winner, Luke Sally, who won his Grade 1 on the turf at Gulfstream. So in addition to the obvious talent she has, she's won all 3 races very easily. She's yet to try 2 turns. She hasn't tried turf yet. So I just think this is one with a lot of promise and a lot of options, and look forward to seeing where she's going to show up next for trainer Kelly Rubley.
Mike Beer, Naira analyst, dipped his toe at Santa Anita last week for his best bet, scored $8. Now you got a horse watch from Santa Anita?
I know, I have my mind on California for some reason. We'll see what happens here. I don't think Donna Veloce, my horse watch, got past too many people last weekend, but just in case, we'll take a look at her debut. This is an $800,000 purchase from earlier this year by Uncle Mo, from the family of Grade 1 winners, Cash Run, Forestry, Shared Interest, a big pedigree here for trainer Simon Callahan, who seems to have a good 2-year-old every single year. I think he's got another one, Dan. This filly went off 3-5, and she absolutely romped in this race without ever getting out of a gallop. A 91 by her speed figure on debut. I think we'll see her in a stakes race next.
Where does Simon Callahan get these horses? Didn't
know.
he have a Malfi Sunrise, that really talented
Yes,
horse that got injured? That's a 2-year-old filly to watch out for next year as well. Now, I have a 2-year-old filly, doesn't exactly have the same pedigree that Mike's horse watch has. This is a daughter of first crop sire Hangover Kid, and she should be a perfect 3 for 3 in her career. She won her debut on dirt at Laurel, finished first in the Colleen Stakes, although she wreaked havoc in the stretch, coming in and wiping out 3-4 horses. She was much the best that day, and she was much the best last week in the Anne Arundel County Stakes at Laurel. This is Miss J. McKay, who's sweeping on the outside, just blows by this field, and she just keeps on rolling along. And what I like was the maturity she showed in this race. While she was ducking in and ducking out of that race at Monmouth and causing all kinds of problems, Trevor McCarthy's keeping her busy, and you see she's still drifting a little bit, but she's just a lot more professional. She finishes this race off with an 86 Beyer speed figure. It's pretty good. She's an underrated filly that I think can stretch out to at least a mile. She's run 3 sprints in her career. Keep an eye out for Miss J. McKay, Maryland-bred daughter of Hangover Kid. Let's get to some handicapping. Saturday's DRF Bets race of the day, the Grade 1, $1 million Shadwell Turf Mile. Let's throw up the field for Saturday's Grade 1, $1 million Shadwell Turf Mile. It's carded as race number 10 at Keeneland, a gigantic full field. You can access free Formulator Pass performances for this race of the day on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. Download them, handicap along with us. And for expanded stakes previews of many of the major graded stakes races, we are in full swing Breeders' Cup prep season. Head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. You know how tough this race is? The morning line favorite is 5-1. It's an undefeated Chad Brown runner. The horse's name is Valid Point Mike. Let's go back to his race 2 starts back at Belmont Park. This is his first start off a mini layoff. Doesn't disappoint.
Yeah, it's a very easy win for this horse. He's 3 for 3 on the way in. He's only a 3-year-old, but they haven't really gotten to the bottom of this horse yet. I don't know how good he ultimately turns out to be, Dan, but I know he's pretty good right now. Listen, he's stepping up to face some legit older horses in here. I don't think there's any stars in this race, but he still has to improve to beat some of these horses. So I wouldn't take too short a price on him, but I also won't be surprised when he wins.
No, I agree. He still has all the upside in the world. You can see he's still a little bit green. He came out of this race to win the Grade 1 Secretariat, but as Mike mentions, he's taking on some older horses in a big, bulky field. He's going to have to prove it, but he is pretty good. Like Mike, I'm not sure I want to take a relatively short price. Craig Milkowski's not taking a short price. He likes a horse that's 10-1 on the morning line. Let's get his take on the Shadwell Turf Mile.
My selection in the Shadwell Turf Mile is going to be Vinegar. He's won 2 in a row for trainer Charlie Appleby over in Europe, one at Chantilly in France and one in Baden-Baden in Germany. They're group stakes, not at the Group 1 level, but he's really shown a lot of versatility in those races. He's a horse who his connections have tried at some longer distances, but his last 3 times trying a 1 mile contest, he's won all 3. Not only that, he's done it on a right-handed course, a left-handed course, and also on a straightaway. So he clearly has that versatility. His trainer knows how to win here. He won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf last year with Line of Power. He also won the Natalma in 2018 with La Pelosa. He's getting Lasix for this trip, which is something that I like to see out of European shippers for the first time. I think they're at a bit of a disadvantage without it, but he does have that. So this also isn't a field I think is particularly strong. It doesn't really look like a Grade 1 field for the American horses. Bandua probably comes out of the best effort with a decent third in the Arlington Million, but that was at a longer distance, and there's some questions about his ability at a mile. So I'm going with Vinegar for the Shadwell Turf Mile.
Craig's going with the Godolphin Invader. Mike, you're going with a horse based in North America. Admission Office has had some trouble in his last 2.
Yeah, he's a really well-bred horse. He started out for Chad Brown in New York, and he's actually an up-and-coming 3-year-old, I thought, last year. I liked his win off the layoff this year. That was over the Keeneland Turf Course, and then he came back with this race in the Dixie. Dan, I thought he ran really well in this race. He's only second best to Catholic Boy in this spot, but you're going to see him down on the inside. Joel Rosario trying to find a way for him to run. He actually gets clear in here. He comes with a really nice finish at the end of this race. He gets up for second at the end, and then he came out of this race and he went to Churchill for the Wise Dan. I thought he ran even better in that race with a similar kind of trip. I just think he fits really well in this race, and he's going to be a price.
No, I agree with you. I liked him in the Wise Dan, was flummoxed by the trip, and he just couldn't get clear. And maybe he's just the kind of horse that needs a little bit of pace and a little bit of luck, but I'm using him in the Shadwell Turf Mile. I'm going to agree with Craig on this race. We saw the performance from Vintager last time out in Germany, and it was running, I thought, an American-style race. Big, fast-paced, runaway leader. This horse was able to creep into contention, very game to hold on. He's gotten better since he's cut back to a mile. Take a look at this formulator fact for his trainer, Charlie Appleby. Past 2 years in North America, when he ships horses over here, they run 4 for 10, $4.52 ROI. Vintager 10-1 on the morning line. We've seen shippers run big races in the Shadwell Turf Mile in the past. Sway Dois, former winner, is in this race this year. He won in 2017 coming from Europe. I'll take a shot with Vintager. Let's move from the turf to the dirt, from older horses to the 2-year-olds. The Claiborne Breeders' Futurity is up next. Let's toss up the field for the Grade 1 Claiborne Breeders' Futurity, a very important prep for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. This race to be held around a 2-turn mile and a 16th. $500,000 is the purse. This race is carded as race number 9 at Keeneland on a star-studded Saturday afternoon card. For expanded stakes previews of many of the major Breeders' Cup prep races all weekend long, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. So many impressive maiden winners stepping up in class to face winners for the first time in the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity. Our colleague and friend Craig Milkowski picked one of them.
In the Breeders' Futurity, I'm going to go with Gouverneur Morris. He is a 5-2 morning line favorite, but he's a horse that I still think is going to offer plenty of value because I think he kind of towers over this field. He won his debut by over 9 lengths. It was a sloppy track, but he won from off a slow pace. He was able to comfortably sit behind it, and he swooped wide around the field and just exploded home and was in hand the whole way. highly visually impressive race. The 99 Timeform US speed figure is solid. It's not quite as good as Tap at the Win, who drew the rail in here, who got a 109, breaking his maiden second out. But I think this one just showed so much potential. I think he's got a lot more in the tank. He's going to love the added distance. He will have to work out a trip from that outside post of 10 that he drew in this 10-horse field. But for me, he's the value play despite his low odds.
Governor Morris splashed home in that race at Saratoga. Sure looked good. Sure made that purchase price look like a bargain at Saratoga, but he's going to have to step up. That was a field full of first-time starters. Mike, you're going with a horse that's going to be a better price, and he overcame a little bit more adversity than Governor Morris did at Saratoga.
Yeah, I thought the 6 Maxfield did overcome a little something in his debut. He debuted at Churchill Downs. It's a replay that's worth watching if you can get your hands on it. He just didn't break that sharply from the gate. I like the way that Jose Ortiz, who was back in to ride again on Saturday, just let him settle early and then swung him wide off the turn. And this horse came with a big finish at the end. I like the way that he closed it down. 67 Buyers, okay. I think he has to improve off of that, but he seems eligible to me to do so. He's got a lot of pedigree backing him up to go long, too. I think there are things to like about this horse at 12-1 on the morning line.
I like Mark Cassie's number 1, Tap It to Win, who drew inside for his dirt debut in his second lifetime start at Saratoga, and that was a day where you did not want to be inside at Saratoga. We saw horses like Owendale on Travers Day, buried on the rail, didn't do anything. What Owendale do last week? Came back, beat Mucho Gusto in the Oklahoma Derby. Tap It to Win not only ran well on the rail, he overcame the rail. Let's watch that maiden race. He broke well. He was part of the pace, got shuffled back a little bit into the pocket on the turn. Rail opened up. Tyler Gaffalione said, I'm going to take it. It's early in the card. I don't know the rail's that bad. Tap It to Win stretches out very nicely to win this race with an 86 Buyer speed figure. Draws a cozy inside post position with a short run to the first turn for his 2-turn debut. Think he's got enough pedigree to last this mile in a 16th, and he breezed in 59 leading up to this race. I liked Tap It to Win overcoming the bias last time out, and I'm hoping he'll be a forward factor and a strong one at that in the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity. Nicole Russo's Pedigree Pic segment focuses on some of the better 2-year-olds running this weekend. Then we'll go to break. Come right on back and stay with us because we still got 2 major races at Belmont, plus David Aragona's Timeform US Spotlight focusing on the Breeders' Futurity, plus Best Bets. Stay with us.
Hey everyone, Nicole Russo coming to you for Out of the Gate, and let's take a look at the field for the Grade 1 Champagne Stakes on Saturday at Belmont Park, one of those historic races at the fall meet with 2-year-olds stretching out to a mile, although this 1-turn mile at Belmont. We'll begin our pedigree analysis by discussing potential race favorite Green Light Go, winner of both his starts sprinting, including the Grade 2 Saratoga Special, which you're watching here. He scratched from the Hopeful Stakes, where he was going to be my top pick, to await this spot. I liked him going 7 furlongs in the Hopeful. I love him going a mile here. This colt with his big, sweepy stride is by Hard Spun, whose best runners have gone longer, like Questing, Wicked Strong, Hard Aces, and others. This colt's dam, Light Green, was a Grade 1 place sprinter, but she is a half-sister to a stakes-performing steeplechaser, and I always take that as a sign of major stamina in a family. Vying for favoritism likely will be Tiz the Law, who earned a 90 Buyer when rolling in this debut race at Saratoga. The runner-up, Dream Bigger, came back to flatter him with a stakes win at Finger Lakes. Tiz the Law is from the first crop of Constitution, who has sired fast runners, but who was a multiple Grade 1 winner routing at Gulfstream. Tiz the Law's dam was a Grade 2 winner routing on turf, and this is the family of 1997 champion juvenile Favorite Trick. With those 2 favorites, let's throw in an interesting long shot, 3 Technique. He was second in his first 2 starts, one of those to eventual hopeful winner Basin, before scoring this nice win in his 3rd start. He has improved each time distance has been added. He's by Mr. Speaker, who won the Belmont Derby at a classic distance on turf, and he's a half-brother to Stan the Man, who was Grade 3 place at this mile trip at Belmont. Now, Mr. Speaker did do his best work on turf and synthetic, but he has a purely dirt pedigree, being by Pulpit and out of Salute from Personal Ensign's line. I don't think it's out of the question for him to sire a dirt horse especially at a route distance. Thanks for tuning in to Out of the Gate. We'll be back with more analysis of this weekend's action after this quick break.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, Timeform US pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. drf.com. Raise your game.
So you think horse racing's all about fancy hats and mint juleps?
But horse racing is a big business in the Commonwealth, from the breeding shed to the racetrack.
It's all part of a multi-billion-dollar industry.
So I bet you're wondering, where do I start?
We all have the same answer.
U of L,
U of L.
the University of Louisville.
We're all graduates of the Equine Industry Program.
So what are you waiting for?
The U of L Equine Industry Program has been developing leaders for over 32 years. Apply today.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate, one of the major marquee races at Belmont Park on Saturday. Heck, one of the major marquee races across the country is the Grade 1 Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. Let's throw up the field. It's race number 9 at Belmont on Saturday. They're going a mile and a half for $500,000. You know the names of many of the horses in this race. Sadler's Joy's a salty old timer, Channel Maker, Arklow, Zulu Alpha. These are hard hitters. This is a very intriguing betting race. For expanded stakes previews of many of the major races all weekend long, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Our colleague Craig Milkowski likes a horse in the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic, a horse that was slightly closer to the pace last time out.
The Grade 1 Hirsch Turf Classic drew just a field of 7, but I think there's a horse that's a real standout in here. That's Sadler's Joy. He is only 5-2 on the morning line, but he comes in off a narrow loss to the really good Annals of Time in the Grade 1 Sword Dancer, where he earned a 126 Timeform US speed figure for the effort. That's the best we have in this field. He is a horse who used to be a bit pace dependent and still could be. He tends to drop well off the pace in his races and oftentimes runs into traffic trouble. But the two things I like are the small field size, which should mitigate the trouble factor. And I also like in that Sword Dancer, he was able to lay close to the pace, closer than he's been in a long time. After a half mile, he was only 5 lengths back. You'd have to go pretty far back in his PPs to see a similar race. And what really stands out about that to me is that it wasn't a slow pace at all. It was actually a fast pace. We have it coded in red in our fractions. Another horse in this field, Yacht Primo, was setting that fast pace. And yet Sadler's Joy still had a strong finishing kick. So while this is a Grade 1 race and he's had his trouble lately in those kind, I think he has this field a bit over a barrel, and I really like Sadler's Joy in here.
Mike, you like a horse that's winless in 2019, but I dare say he has been unlucky and he has run well more often than not.
Yeah, I sort of feel the same way about Arklow. It's about time for him to break through here. It's hard to believe when you go back and look through his form outside of the first race off the left where he lost his rider. Other than that, it's hard to believe he hasn't won a race yet this year, but he's been close several times. I think he fits really well in this race. We have the replay of his most recent start we'll show you here. Now, based on this evidence, where he's facing Zulu Alpha again, you don't want Arklow in this race. You want Zulu Alpha, who was razor sharp, winning the Kentucky Turf Cup. Arklow only finishes second in here. But other than this, I feel like Arklow, his races 2-back, 3-back, and 4-back. He didn't win any of those. He could have won any of them with a little bit of racing luck, Dan. I'm not done with him yet. I'm giving him one more chance.
No, he certainly has all the upside. There's a race for him. It could very well be the Joe Hirsch on Saturday. I went with Zulu Alpha. I know what I'm getting from him. It's going to be a good, consistent effort. Why? He's a good, consistent horse that shows up just about every time. And we saw him take the measure of Arklow. And a lot of times, I find it very difficult to judge those Kentucky Downs races, but this horse just fired. He was hung out wide, he took over the lead, and he won without much fuss. He draws a nice inside post. Distance is no issue for Zulu Alpha. And I think even though he beat Arklow last time out, it could be a better price than Arklow on Saturday in the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. I'm going to go with Zulu Alpha over Sadler's Joy and Arklow in the Grade 1 Joe Hirsch. Let's check out the 2-year-olds at Belmont. Major Breeders' Cup Juvenile Prep in the prestigious Champagne. Here's the field for the Grade 1 Champagne for 2-year-olds going a 1-turn mile at Belmont Park on Saturday. It's race number 10, They're running for $500,000. The undefeated number 3, Green Light Go, your 8-5 morning line favorite for expanded stakes previews of many of the major Breeders' Cup Prep Stakes races all weekend long. Visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike, let's talk about Green Light Go. This horse is undefeated. He is big. He is professional. He's been a man against the boys. That's how I mentioned him and described him in the stakes preview. Let's look at his win last time out in the Sanford. He came from off the pace this time around, took a bump in doing so.
Yeah, he's just a very mature 2-year-old. He's done nothing wrong so far. He won his debut on the front end. I thought it was a pretty soft pace. Thought he ran well, but I didn't think he was really tested there. He showed in this race, the Grade 2 Saratoga Special, that he could rate and run. He ran right through that bump. He wins very easily. Listen, he's got to stretch out to a mile. So does just about everybody else in this field. He is the horse to beat.
Now, Jimmy Jerkin skipped the hopeful with this horse, wet track, and I understand that completely. Again, he's a big horse that might have gotten bogged down on a wet track, but you said he was a very mature 2-year-old, and that is a perfect description. How many 2-year-olds they're breezing 6 and 7 furlongs this time of the year, getting ready for a major race? You're right. He is the horse to beat. Craig Milkowski, you're going to try to beat him with a very impressive debut winner.
Tiz the Law is going to be my selection in the Champagne Stakes. He comes out of a New York bred maiden special weight win with a huge 111 Timeform US speed figure, way above par even for a maiden special weight, but particularly for New York breds. But this was no typical New York bred race. It was a strong race. The runner-up that day has come back to run very well. He romped in a New York bred stakes at Finger Lakes on Monday by over 10 lengths and did so easily. Dream Bigger, that is. And I was just really impressed with Tiz the Law. In addition to that 111 Timeform US speed figure was how easily he did it. He just was cantering through the stretch, was wrapped up on through the last probably half a furlong, won as easy as could be. Green Light Go is obviously the horse to beat. He's 2 for 2. He would have been the favorite in the hopeful, but he had a minor issue come up and had to scratch. And he's right back in the entry box, and he's obviously going to be the one you have to handle. But Tiz the Law looked like a special horse to me. He surprised his connections a little. I think he was 7-2 that day against those New York bred maidens, but he sure didn't win like it. He won like a 1-5, and I'm looking for big race from him in the Champagne.
I can't really argue with Craig, Dan. I agree with everything he said about Tiz the Law. This horse was a very impressive winner first time out at Saratoga with a 90 buyer. It's obviously not ideal that he missed 3 weeks after that race, but he's been training forwardly since then. Barkley Tad's going to take a shot. I like that he's drawn outside. I'm going to give this horse a chance to step up.
That replay was stunning and how easy he won. That was just like a breeze in the morning for Tiz the Law. Got a 90 buyer speed figure, big Timeform US rating as well. I like 3 Technique's most recent start. I like the fact he's got 3 races under his girth. I like the fact that he's incrementally stretching out in distance from 5 to 6 to 7, now a mile. Last time out as the favorite at Saratoga, he was in and among horses early, and he has got a lot of work to do turning into the stretch. He's got to be 5 lengths behind at the 3/16 pole, but just watch him kick it in here. Jose Ortiz asks him for run, and 3 Technique rockets by everybody. And not only does he get by these horses, he wins by almost 6 with an 83 buyer speed figure, pairing up the top fig that he earned in his 2 starts back, went second to eventual hopeful winner Basin. This horse should get some pace. I'm not worried about the mile. Jeremiah Engelhardt just had a breakout summer with his 2-year-olds at Saratoga. I'm curious to see what we get from 3 Technique. 7-2 on the morning line. We used him with Mike and Craig's top pick. Tiz the Law. Let's go to David Aragona's Timeform US Spotlight segment. He always likes prices. He found one in the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity.
Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona for this week's Timeform US Spotlight. I'm going to take a look at the Breeders' Futurity, race 9 at Keeneland on Saturday, grade 1 event for the 2-year-olds, most of them stretching out in distance around 2 turns for the first time. A bunch of horses also coming up out of maiden victories, so interesting to compare the different races that these horses are coming out of and who has the best form as they step up against Stakes Company. Before we get to the contenders though, I want to take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this race. You see the number 1 horse, Tap It to Win, predicted to be out on the lead. It's It's a situation where the pace projector is predicting a fast pace. That's mostly due to the fact that so many of these horses are stretching out in distance for the first time. A lot of them have shown speed in sprint races, so we'll have to see how those running styles translate to this 2-turn mile on the 16th. Tap It to Win is likely to have some company on the front end, even though the pace projector shows him on it clearly. There are other horses that want to be forwardly placed, like the number 3 Life on the Road, the number 4 King Theo. The number 2 Buyer Side is also stretching out, as well as American Butterfly, the 7, and especially Gouverneur Morris, the number 10 on the outside, is going to have to get over from that outside post position. My top pick is the horse that's predicted to be on the lead, that number 1, Tap It to Win. This is a horse that I've just been waiting to bet back since his debut, since his maiden victory at Saratoga, because it's a very interesting situation. You might remember that he broke his maiden on Travers Day, August 24th, and that was one of those cards at Saratoga where the rail was dead. You just could not be on the rail and be particularly effective in any of the dirt races. I mean, we saw a lot of short price favorites go down to defeat, including Chancelot, who looked like he couldn't possibly lose the Alan Jerkins. He was on the rail for most of that race and got run down as the 1-9 favorite. Tap It to Win, though, was the exception. He was the one horse that was on the rail for just about the entire trip in his in that second race on August 24th, and he somehow ran an excellent race to win, far ahead of the other competition. The runner-up Complexifier, who was outside, actually came back to win, just validating the form of that race. And I think it's a real question. Was the track just different for this second race on the card on August 24th? Or did Tap It to Win just beat the bias, and he's just an exceptional 2-year-old that can overcome adversity like that? It remains to be seen. I didn't see any reason why the track would have changed just for one race, so I think it's a possibility the Tap It to Win is just a really talented horse. You see the blue color-coded race rating, the Timeform USPPs, that just indicates that in addition to the rail not being the place to be, Travers Day was a day that favored a lot of horses making closing runs, and Tap It to Win was up close to the pace in his race. Now, he's drawn the rail here. That's actually a pretty good post position, going the mile on the 16th at Keeneland, because he gets to head right into that first turn, hugging the rail. He's also bred to stretch out in distance. He's by Tap It, who's certainly a stamina influence, and the Dam, she herself was a stakes-winning dirt router. She's a half-to horse that won stakes going a mile and 1/8 on the dirt, graded stakes events. So Tap It to Win certainly has the pedigree to excel over this distance, and I just think he might be a pretty nice horse, and I believe he can win this race. There are some other contenders to consider, but I think Tap It to Win is definitely the horse to beat in this Breeders' Futurity. We'll take a look at some of the other contenders. Gouverneur Morris is a horse that I think you have to consider. Breaking from the outside post position, he's got to overcome that, but he was visually impressive in his debut, though that did come in the slop. He certainly is a horse who's bred to handle wet going like that. It was also just a 5.5 furlong race, so he's got to stretch out an additional 3 furlongs here, and comparing his maiden to some other horses coming out of Saratoga maiden victories, that just wasn't the strongest maiden special weight field that he faced on September 2nd. There were really no other live firsters in there, no other horses with experience who looked particularly formidable. So I'm just not sure how much credit I want to give Gouverneur Morris for winning that race by 9 lengths. He obviously has talent, but I think he has to take a step forward to beat a horse like Tap It to Win. A horse like Ajaweed, coming off a maiden win at Belmont Park, I think he's got to be considered because, unlike most in this race, he already has a win going a route distance. He did that around the 1 turn at Belmont Park last time, going a mile. The horse that was second in that race, Forza Dioro, did have a ton of trouble, and maybe the result would have been a lot closer if Forza Dioro had broken out of the gate. He spotted the field about 4 or 5 lengths, and that really handed Ajaweed the victory. But take nothing away from this horse. Ajaweed really stepped forward in his second start for Kieran McLaughlin. He's a horse that's obviously bred to run all day, being by Curland out of a Dam who was stakes place routing, so I think he can step forward too. And even a horse like Maxfield, the number 6, is one that I would consider. That 93 Timeform US speed figure that he earned in his debut, not as fast as a horse like Tap It to Win, who got a 109, but it stacks up with some others in this field. He did it going a mile in his debut, and he closed from well off the pace. We saw that pace projector where the Timeform US is predicting a fast pace to develop, and Maxfield could be one of the horses that really benefits from that situation if it does develop on the front end. So I think Maxfield could be closing at the end of this race, but like I said at the top, I don't want to take a shot against Tap It to Win because I think he might be a pretty special colt for Mark Casse, and I don't think he's going to have trouble stretching out in distance. So Tap It to Win is my pick in this Breeders' Futurity, hoping to get somewhere around that 5-2, 3-1 morning line, though I wouldn't be surprised if he gets bet down a little bit off of that.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Our colleague Craig Milkowski has found a very consistent competitor in Southern California.
My best bet this week is going to be River Boyne in the Grade 2 City of Hope Stakes being run at Santa Anita. It's a mile race on the turf. I'm sure some of the horses in here are hoping to get into the Breeders' Cup Mile. And the reason I like this horse is there's a couple reasons. The first is he's just had a lot of tough trips this year, particularly from a pace standpoint. He's had many races where in our Timeform USPPs he's had blue fractions indicating the pace was slow. And while he's run well every time, he hasn't been able to overcome that. The last time out, he was second in a race again, but this time the pace was reasonable, but Bolo, a very good horse, was left alone on the lead, uncontested, and he was unable to run him down. But the main reason I've zeroed in on this horse is I like that he's coming off a break. This is a horse who had run 17 consecutive races without a break of more than about 2 months, and this time he's coming in off a 4-month layoff. His workouts are very good in the time in the interim. He looks like he's really ready to fire a big race off the bench. And in this big field, and with all the losses looming, building up on his resume, I think the price is going to be worthwhile. So again, River Boyne in the Grade 2 City of Hope Mile for me.
Mike Beer, Naira analyst. The stars are once again aligned. Your best bet on Saturday at your home track, Belmont.
Yeah, race number 4 is for 2-year-old fillies. They're going to go a mile on the main track, a maiden special weight. I want to give Always a Queen a chance here stretching out for her second career start. We're going to look at a replay right now of her career debut at Saratoga, where she just didn't get forward early in the race. You're going to see her at the back of the pack here. Jose Ortiz has her under a pretty good hold here. He's just keeping her in hand. He's not really going for a run yet. And at this point, he's just got a lot of work to do and nowhere to really do it. So he's going to have to take her to the outside here, and you're going to see things just not really go her way. She's going to wind up in the parking lot as they turn to the top of the stretch here. The horse that wins the race is on the lead and on the rail. That's Alondra, who is in the Alcibiades at Keeneland on Friday. This horse just, I think, took the worst of it on the far outside. She will race on to the end here without real threat. She's bitonalist. She's out of her Curlin mare, who was Grade 1 place routing on the dirt. She is supposed to want more distance, and I would just like to see her get more forwardly placed in this race. It's sort of a wide open maiden special weight race, and I think she could be a good price in this race.
I think you found the widest trip of the entire Saratoga meet with Always a Queen. That's called a far balcony move. I'm going to go with Laurel, race number 4. It's a 2-year-old filly as well. I like the number 8, Beth Ibarra. Made her debut in a turf sprint at Laurel back on September the 13th. Didn't break very well. The winner of that race, odds-on horse that already had experience. Maybe an Omen just went to the front, blitzed this field. I like Beth Ibarra. She made an inside mid-move, altered course to the outside, and with this long stretch at Laurel, she's going to come with a good, determined run to finish second, kind of make this even relatively close at the end behind the odds-on favorite, Maybe an Omen. I think Beth Ibarra is going to learn a lot from this experience, and second time out, I think she's going to offer a pretty good price for trainer Hamilton Smith off this 46 Beyer performance. 9-2 on the morning line. Beth Ibarra, race number 4, number 8 at Laurel on Saturday. We thank you for watching Out of the Gate, and we urge you to follow all of DRF TV's latest offerings on social media. Please follow on Twitter at DRF Video, and for the latest news and notes from America's Turf Authority, please follow on Twitter at DRF Inside Post. That's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate. Thank you.